All right, let's clap it up. Hey, Shalom Israel with the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Start out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. It's the Friday Night Lashawan Qadash class where we teach we break down the scriptures from a linguistics perspective, which is very important to understanding the scriptures. You have to understand, if you're going to read a book pertaining to a people, you have to understand their language, And this is our culture. This is our history book. So our history book was translated from Hebrew to English in the Old Testament, and then it was translated from Greek to English in the New Testament because we were under Greco-Roman captivity. But for you to understand the New Testament, you also have to understand the Hebrew. You have to understand the people that the Bible was talking about. And that's where a lot of people get slipped up. Where it's a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of sincere Christians in the Christian church, but they've been led astray by the Christian pastor. There's a lot of sincere Catholics in the Roman Catholic Church, but they've been led astray by the Roman Catholic priests. Because they don't understand the language. That's a big part of it. So if you understand the language, if you understand the Hebrew, then you can what's the word? You can debunk a lot of the garbage and a lot of the Christian dogma and a lot of the Catholic dogma that your Christian church likes to push. You'll be able to debunk all of those things. You'll be able to actually understand the Bible, according to your culture. Because again, the Bible, the culture that's in the Bible, the history that's in the Bible belongs to you, Black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man. So that's why we do this class, every Friday. So if you got any questions pertaining to the topic or off topic, pertaining to the Lashawan Qadash, go ahead and ask your questions. If you got any questions in the room, you go ahead and raise your hand. All right. Before we get started, any topics or anything you want to go over before we move forward or go into the topic for tonight? All right, no sweat. And anybody watching online, you go ahead and put your questions in the chat. Your questions and comments in the chat, and then I'll get to them. If I don't answer them tonight, just check your social media inbox. Check your what's it called, your notifications. And if I don't get to them tonight, then I'll just reply to them, and and then you'll see the notification later. All right. But real quick, all right, before we get into it, I want to do a real quick review. So we already familiar with the 4 steps that you want to follow doing reading the Lashawan Qadash. So the 4 steps are, of course, every phrase, or most phrases, let me say that, most phrases has a root word. That's going to be very important. All right. So if you can isolate the root word, then you can understand what the phrase is talking about. All right. Most root words have 2 to 3 characters. All right. And then your preposition is going to be a character that we talked about down here that we've been reviewing. Your preposition is going to come before the root word. All right. And it's just going to be one of these characters here that we've been just constantly going over. All right. Then your possessive is going to be one of these characters that comes after the root word. We just did a review on that. All right. And then last but not least, the tenses is going to either be in the middle of the root word or after the root word. But those 4 steps is going to help you be able to break down any phrase that you're going to come against reading the Lashawan Qadash, reading, any phrase when we go in the Bible Hub, Blue Letter Bible, If you got a Torah, you know what I mean? It's going to help you break down those phrases and understand the Hebrew. It's going to help you also understand brothers' names. It's going to help you understand other words. You know what I mean? But that's going to be very helpful for you. That's what we've been going over, or that's what we constantly review every class, the 4 steps. All right. And we also went over tenses, more tenses. So tenses are very important. They're going to come in the middle or after the root word. All right. So we went over a couple tenses we went over. We went over pluralization tense. We went over what's it called? A doing tense. We went over servile tense. We went over what's it called? What's the word? Proper noun, where you're naming something, naming tense, which is one at the end of a word. You know what I mean? We went over all these tenses, but you also have past, present, and future tense. Like in a general sense, if you're talking about past tense, you might see a ya in the middle of a word. That's a past tense in general. You know what I mean? Just like your doing tense. If you see a wa in the middle of a word, that's present tense in general. So you're doing something. All right. But past tense, this is just an addition to your tenses. That's the easiest way I can explain it. So this is just an addition to it. This is just an addition to your tenses. All right. So this is past tense. We went over it a couple weeks ago. I was going to do a quick review, because what we're going to go over next is going to be very simple, or it's like very similar to past tense and the concept. You know what I mean? Well, it's going to be very similar. We're going to see later. But past tense, which is ibar in the Hebrew, right? Which is where the word Hebrew comes from. Ibar is in the English translation. Hebrew is the Hebrew translation, or the Lashawan Qadash, right? We use the example of the word shamar, right? And you're going to use these words: I, you, he, she, we, y'all, and they. All right. So, like I was talking about before, in a general tense, like if there's no specific point of view, there's no I, you, he, she, we, y'all, or they, then the way to express past tense, you'll just see a ya in the middle of a word. All right. But if there's a specific point of view, then you'll see these right here, right? And this can help you avoid a lot of confusion. You know what I mean? As you're going through or breaking down or trying to understand the Hebrew. So like, let me turn my phone off. Good night. But Slovakia. But okay, so start with the first one, just to give an example of what I'm talking about. So anya is how you would say I. You know what I mean? We went over that probably by now, a couple months ago. But anya is how you would say I or I am, right? So to say I or past tense, watch, to convert watch to past tense, you would say watched with an ED. You know what I mean? I watched. So to say I watch, you would say anya shamar ya. All right? And you can easily mispronounce a phrase just not knowing the tense. All right? So what we've been taught, right? So what we've been taught is the 4 steps, right? The root word, preposition, possessive, and the tenses. So we've been taught that tha is a tense, meaning what is it? It's a lot here. I just lost it. A tense meaning. Damn. Why have I lost it? The thought. Categories. Salakia.
Thought would be plural. Intense.
It'll be plural in regard to categories.
Kind, yeah. It'd be plural, or it'd be servile.
So that's what we've been taught, and that's an excellent foundation. So based on our foundation, we will read this. Like if we were to read this phrase, right? So I'm gonna write it right here. Let me see if I can see this. Where can I write this? All right, I'm gonna put it right here since it's already been some Hebrew right here. All right. So Shamar Thaya. All right. So what you would So I don't know if y'all can see that in the black. Let me move this camera up just a little bit. All right. But this is real important, and understanding this is going to elevate your Lashawan Qadash game a lot. But if you just saw this, you know that this root word is shamar, right? So this root word is shamar. So based on what we've been taught, right, or what we understand so far, rather, you see this tha, you're like, okay, this tha has to mean categories, all right? So when you looking at categories, let me put something a little brighter under here. But when you're looking at categories, you will automatically want to just add this to your root word. So instead of shamar, you'll want to just add the tha to shamar. So now you're saying shamarath. Because all you understand is categories when it comes to the tha. So now when you see what we're this concept right here, you'll automatically just want to apply the tha to the root word because that's what we've been taught. That's what we've seen, right? And then now you see this ya at the end, so you automatically want to say, yeah, you automatically want to just use it as a possessive, which means me or mine. You know, we've been saying salakia. We've been, anytime we say, you know what I mean? Anytime we see a ya at the end of a phrase or a root word, we automatically want to assume that it's a possessive meaning me or mine, because at our foundation, that's what we understand. You know what I mean? So in total, we'll want to pronounce this as shamarathya, because you want to include the tha with the root word and then add the possessive. But you would only do that if you don't understand this concept. So this, based on what we learned last week, this new concept, this past tense, the correct pronunciation is anya shamar thaya. But you only understand to pronounce it that way if you understand this concept. If you don't understand this, what we just went over in the past class, you'll want to pronounce it Shamarathya, right? And that's incorrect, right? Based on the context, that changes the context. You know what I mean? So that's you know what I mean? And I gave an example last week and the week before, but that's just the importance of what we're going over today. The pronunciation of how you pronounce certain phrases changes the context. All right. So we just gonna do a quick review of what we already went over. You know what I mean? And it's a lot. Let me find something to wipe this board off with. It's a lot. And I pray I didn't confuse brothers, but it's important to notice. And if you don't notice, you're going to get tripped up. It's a very simple concept to understand, but if you don't understand this concept, then it's easy to get tripped up on how to pronounce phrases. All right. But that's just the difference. Like we was talking about, I believe the example that I used last time was King Solomon's name. So if you pronounce his name, I believe that's what was here. His name is Shalamah, which is shalom. The root word is shalom with a servile tense at the end. But the difference is if you have shalom with a servile tense at the end, you pronounce it shalom, shalamah. All right, does that sound familiar?
Shalamah.
Right, King Solomon's name, which means peaceful or servant of peace, right? But if you add the same suffix, it's a lot here. Where is it at? Here, the possessive ha at the end of shalom, which means peace, it'll be her peace, right? But the difference is the pronunciation. So if you pronounce it shalamah, it's just a servile tense, meaning peaceful or servant of peace. Peace with a servile tense at the end. But if you add the possessive at the end, you have to pronounce the ha. So instead of shalamah, you will pronounce it shalom ha. So the pronunciation is very important. All right, go ahead.
So anyway, I know for class purposes, so we usually just say shalom, but so we don't just. I know if it's for class purposes. So if you talk to a sister, you just say shalom. Ha. Yeah, shalom ha.
Well, if we talking to a sister, we'll just say shalom.
Right,
you just say shalom. But if like I'm trying to, like you said, like it's just for class purpose, just to teach it. But I can't think of a scenario where you would say her piece.
Yeah.
Let me see. Like relying on the Lord or being in the truth was her piece. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. I'm just
yeah.
But I'm just saying that to say like we was talking about last week. Let me see. Shalom. So I'm saying that to say that if you depending on the context, it's going to look like this. It's going to say shalom, which is what I got underlined, and then it's going to have this suffix. But the way you pronounce it depends on your intention of how you're using it. So if you mean to say her piece, you'll pronounce it shalom ha, right? Like how you'll say, like, okay, let me think. Let me see if this will work. That ain't gonna work. Like the same way we use salakia. Like salak is the root word, and the suffix is just ya, which is me or my. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept for this. You just add an aha at the end. So you add the ha at the end, it's just saying her. So if you were saying shalom, which is peace, and then adding a ha at the end to say her peace, it will be shalom ha. Just like you would say salak ya. Or like if you were saying my peace, it will be shalom ya.
The same thing with blessing, let's say baraka ya.
Come.
Blessing me.
Come. It'll be the same. Exactly. It'll be the same thing. Right? But if you were to say, if you were adding it as a servile tense, if you're adding ha as a servile tense rather than a possessive, you would just pronounce it, all together. So shalomah. Shalomah. So you just add that ah sound at the end. Right? You wouldn't you wouldn't use it as a possessive. Right? And it's just two different pronunciations.
It's like
Go ahead.
If I made the servile, just when you just make it a servile, you just made it singular, but it was still plural at the same. It's still plural when you pronounce it the other way.
What you mean by that?
Oh, you say shalom ha, and then you say if it was the servile, you say how you pronounce shalom ha.
Shalomah.
Shalomah, man.
Okay.
So two different pronunciations. Both of them still possessive.
No.
All right.
No. So the possessive is when you say ha at the end. So shalom ha is a possessive.
Right.
It's using it as a possessive. Shalomah is servile. So when you say ah at the end of a root word, is when it's a possessive.
All right, gotcha.
Right? Just like if you the best way to understand it is like understanding like sisters' names. That's at least, I'm not gonna say that's the best way to understand it, but that's how I understood it. Understanding sisters' names. They have a servile tense at the end of their name. But when you talking about when you're using her as a possessive, like ownership.
It's like if I can't. So servile, I probably would have messed up. What's the understanding of servile? Like, what's the complete definition of the servile part? I probably would have messing up at what understanding the servile. What does servile mean as far as in this content?
Okay, so servile basically is talking about like service. Right. Like, because there's a hierarchy. Right, there's always been, that's what it's talking about, hierarchy. Right, gotcha. There's always been a hierarchy in our culture. Right. So how a son serves a father, how a soldier serves a king or a nation. I mean, that's the difference. And that's what's so important, because a lot of times when we see a ha at the end of a word, we automatically associate it with feminine. But that's not our culture. That comes from our oppressors' culture. Because in their culture, like for somebody to be under somebody, for them to have a hierarchy, you got to do something feminine. Like we look at, I don't know if you went to college, but you look at like, what they call them, fraternities.
Yeah, sororities.
Well, that's for the sisters.
For sisters.
But fraternities, you come into a fraternity and they have you do some feminine crap. Yeah, they gotta smack you on your behind with a paddle or some other. You gotta stand naked in front of them. That's their culture. That comes from the Greco-Roman. That's why all the fraternities are in Greek. It comes from their culture. It's also like in the military, like kind of got to do some feminine stuff. Like you look at the history of like the Greco-Roman military, or like what they call them, like just to go into the history real quick. You go into like the history of Valentine's Day. That symbol comes from, it's like a coming of age ceremony where either that young what they call them on a boat, that young brother or that young man that was learning to become a someone, I don't know what they call it.
I know with the Hispanic system called, what they do when they turn 16, I forgot how you pronounce it.
I know what you're talking about, but but it's not that. But specifically, like I'm going into the Edomites history.
All right, I got you.
So when they go into like, I didn't want to say pirate, but like when they like when they raise up young men in that type of environment, when they on the boat, the Vikings and all of that, the coming of age ritual, so to speak, was that they would either sleep with the young man or they would get him a prostitute. Another custom is like in the Roman customs, they would have their women cut their heads to look like men and dress like men because that's just what they be on. You know what I mean? So when we see the ha, like even in the Spanish language, like I believe they say, what do they say? Like to say son is hijo, and to say daughter is hija. So the O at the end is supposedly masculine, and the I at the end is feminine. So when we see this in Hebrew, we automatically want to apply that same thing, but that comes from our oppressor because the ha, or what we associate the ha with is femininity, but it's servile. It just means one person is serving another. So you'll see it in the scriptures. Like, for example, what's the word? Salakia. Like, okay, I'll use this example. Like, I'll use a different tense. Like, for example, first of all, King Solomon's name is not feminine. That's the first indicator. His name is not feminine, right? King Solomon had 1,000 wives. Right. So he's not feminine in any way, right? Another example used in another servile tense, Malak. Malak is king. Malak Waf, which Waf would be the servile tense, is kingdom. You know what I mean? But that's just a servile tense behind Malak, which means the kingdom or the kingdom or whatever the king is over serves the king. You know what I mean? But that's the difference. In your oppressor's language, they have feminine tense. We have servile tense because men serve brothers serve brothers as well, and it ain't got nothing to do with femininity. You know what I mean? But your oppressor in their culture, they want to make everything feminine. They want to make everything. Anytime a brother is serving another brother, they got to make them do something feminine. That's their culture. But in our culture, it's just service. You know what I mean? It's just It's just a young man is serving an older man. You know what I mean? That's all it is. But that's the difference. And that's why there's two different pronunciations. Now, if you want to refer to sisters, if you want to say her, you'll just say ha at the end of the root word. But if you're talking about anybody serving somebody, instead of saying shalom ha, you'll say shalom ma. You know what I mean? Got it. But that's the difference. And the difference is just context. So you'll know how to pronounce it based on the context. So if the context you read in the scriptures, and we might have some time to go into it tonight. We'll jump into the Lashawan Qadash tonight. But if you see a ha at the end of a root word, if you haven't read in the English, her, or we're not talking about sister, or it's like, let me not say that. But if you're not talking about her or anything like that, like her house, like the word for house is bayat, right? So to say her house, you would say bayaf her, right? That's how you pronounce that. Anytime you're talking about her as a possession, her house, her book. Book, I believe, is Sapar or Shapar. Or Salaki, Sapar, Salaki. So Sapar Ha. Her her brother. So Ak is brother. Ak Ha. Her brother. Right? That's how you'll pronounce that. Right? But if you're talking about any root word with a servile tense at the end, talking about one thing serving another, then you would just pronounce it like, let me think of an example. But there's plenty of examples. We'll probably get into some examples later when we get into the what's it called, the Bible Hub. But it's just important to know the difference. You know what I mean? And that's what we went into the last couple classes. Because if you understand past tense, then you'll be able to see these nuances and be able to pronounce them how they're supposed to be pronounced, rather than, you know what I mean, rather than having to guess. And this is where brothers usually like pause or like trip up, stumble, and all of those things, because we haven't, or we just went into past tense. But you about to say something?
I was laughing. I stumble on the long words, the long phrases. That's what I stumble on.
And that's exactly why we're going into this. Because okay, I'm gonna go ahead and write it out, right?
Yeah, I can read a lot of this stuff. But we start getting these long phrases. It's my Louisiana don't allow me to do it.
Yeah. So let me see if so. Let me see. Let me see. I'm gonna try to make a long phrase, since that was the example you gave. All right.
So we did
Wow.
You got one already?
I got one. What you got?
I was gonna use one of the. I was gonna use the one of the words. The prayer, Lord prayer.
Okay. No sir.
Let me think of like Wahata Para Ara. So I don't know. See how long it is. I have a hard time.
Let me see.
See how long it is, and I get a hard time to try to pronounce it. Yeah.
Wahata Para.
It says, please enter a new password to your account.
All right.
So I use the same one I had.
Ara. Yeah. Wahata Para. See, I messed up. See. Wahata Para.
Okay.
I see it right that time.
Wahata Para.
Wahata Para.
Come. That's exactly.
But still, I would have to. I gotta completely slow it down.
Con. So this is just long because the root word is long.
Con.
So it's just waha. So where is it? And wa ha the. So and the, and then ta pa ara is glory. Right. But it's just a long root word. And I might have to look into it. It might be a root word with the servile tense at the end.
Yeah, it's like it's just like I noticed like while we were doing it, I was doing the Sabbath services. Like I would run through some of the words, but when you start getting to the long phrases, I tend to trip up because there's a lot of preposition and you get possessors at the ends, and you probably got a buffer, y'all in the middle.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that because that's all it is. Like everything you just said, that's the key to understanding it. It's just knowing what's there. It's like, is there a buffer here? Is there a suffix? Is there or a possessive? Is there a preposition here? Is there a tense in the middle? Or basically these 4 steps. Is there, what's the root word? What's the preposition? Is there a possessive there? Is there a tense? And then this is just another layer. It's like, okay, are we talking in past tense, present tense, or future tense? Like that's really the whole point of the class. Like just understand, is that the 100 most commonly used?
Yeah, most commonly used.
Most occurs.
I gotta start studying this stuff.
It'll be helpful. It'll help you be able to identify certain phrases, certain words. But it's just good to have. It's definitely just good to have just for reference.
Right.
But then, you know what I mean, no matter what root word is there, like I'm glad you got that. What is that, the nouns or verb? Okay, perfect. Because you can replace any of those words with the word that we're using for example. Like shamar is just the word that we're using for example. But you can use any of those words. Like give me one. Just give me a random one.
Let's go with what is it, God?
It says signing out the username or password.
Wa'aha. How you say C?
Ra'a. Yeah. Ra'a. Where are you looking at?
C. Right there. C.
Okay, I just use the word.
Ra'a. Yeah, ka. Ra'a. Ka. So okay, perfect. Let me see. I'm use blue so it'll be easier to. Here we go. All right, so instead of watch, right, we gonna use ra'a.
It's still yellow.
All right. Which means to see. Wow. All right. So if we're saying, so ra'a is just general tense, see. It's just in general. And also just to note that ra'a had a ha at the end. All right. Just to simplify, a lot of times when you add we're adding a tense, right? So what we're about to go over, we're going to add something to it. So a lot of times that ha drops off. So it'll be ra and ah without the ha there. That's what you'll see for the most part. Right.
Okay, so I can just go by my.
So the past tense of see is saw, right? So if you say I saw, right? So to say I see, it'll be anya ra'a. I see. To say I saw, be ra'a. It's like anya ra'a the ya. The taya just indicates past tense. It just
that's like I say. So it's a saw. So the past tense was saw.
Con. In a first person perspective, I saw.
I saw.
So if it says, like a lot of times the scriptures is in it's in like a general sense. So it's just a I don't want to say story being told, but it's just a scribe talking about what's happening. So this happened and this happened and this happened. So usually it's just in general. It's not talking about you did or I did or he did or they did. It's not in any particular sense. It's just talking about, it's just in general. Like, this is what happened. And this day, this happened. And then this day.
It's more like a narrative. Speaking.
But when it gets specific, like when the story is actually, you getting deep in the story, it's like, oh, this person did this and this person did this and they did this and I did this. Right. Then that's where you get into this. So like we talking about past tense. All right, so I saw this and he saw like what can I say? What's an example? Like when I believe when Isaac was trying to look for Rachel or trying to find the right wife according to what his father commanded, he saw Rachel from afar off. He saw her. So it's like, okay, he saw, right? Which will be Hawa'ah, and we're going to get to it. But it'll say it's another person telling the story. It's like, okay, he saw this. So if I was telling a story about you, it's like, okay, he saw this and he did this and this, that, and the third. All right, that's where this will come into play. Right? And it just depends on perspective. And if you know the perspective, then you'll understand what's going on. Right? So instead of pronouncing it wrong, like because that's why I brought up what I brought up earlier about the tha. Like normally we would just want to add the tha to the root word and then pronounce the ya as a possessive, but that's incorrect depending on the context. Because we're talking about past tense, instead of saying ra'ah or ra'af and adding the tha to the root word, saying ra'af ya, it will be ra'ah the ya. And that would indicate past tense, meaning I saw. So way back when or whatever, you know what I mean? And then the next one, okay, so the word for you is a tha. So to say you saw, it will be a tha, you, ra'ah, La. Good try though. I see why you said that. But I'm glad you said that because that's exactly why we're talking about this. Because you will see if I was saying you saw, it will be ra'ah tha. Ra'ah tha. But as a tense, what does tha mean?
I got you, man. You.
Or as a
tense?
As a tense.
Or tense, I mean, it's plural.
Yeah. Or a plural meaning category. So we will want to say ra'af if we saw it in the Hebrew. Like, let me write it here. If we saw this, we would want to say ra'af. Ra'af. That's what we would want to say. So it will somehow be C in categories. But that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? The correct pronunciation is ra'af tha. And sometimes this start to end will mean categories, but it depends on the context. That's why I keep on going to.
It's like I would. It's like I know you pronounce it the other way, but when I see this one, I was still say Wa'ata. Like,
Oh yeah, I know you would because
yeah, I would not say like you said it earlier. I can't even say the way you said it earlier. How you say it? Like
Ra'af. You would just
I wouldn't say that.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. There's an occasion where you would pronounce it like that.
Oh, you know what I'm saying about though, like. So what would the occasion? What would be the occasion when you just said it the other way?
Like, okay, let me see it. let me see.
Because I would just say it right.
Okay, so I know you familiar. You familiar with the Lashawan Qadash alphabet, right?
Yeah. So right.
Let me see.
Right.
How would you pronounce this word?
Okay. Oh, you got what the you got right there?
Yeah. Ba.
Oh, yeah, it's a bad ba. Abat.
La.
So abat.
Oh wait, Salaki, no, you're right.
Right, yeah,
Salaki, Abath.
Yeah, abat.
But okay, so why did you pronounce this Abath, but you would pronounce this Ra'atha?
No, I would say arat. Well, yeah, arata.
That's what you said.
Yeah,
that you
I
would
just
say.
said earlier. I would say arata.
So why would you say Ra'atha here, but you would pronounce this Abath?
That's a good question. I don't know why I would do that.
Okay.
So arat. So arat. Salaki. I would say salaki. I would say arat. I would see that. I would say salaki. I would say arat. Like I said, there's abat.
Okay.
So I would say this is the way I would say that I both the same way at the end with that.
Okay.
Emphasizing the th at the end.
Okay. I understand why you would do it, but that's what I'm talking about right now. And what that brother just said is the point. Context. What do you mean to say? What do you mean to say? So you said you would pronounce this Abath and you would pronounce this Ra'ath. But one of those is incorrect. Abath is correct. So that's Abba with a tha at the end, meaning categories. Like categories of fathers. You got your grandfathers, you got your father, you got your forefather. You know what I mean? You got your forefathers. You know what I mean? Categories of fathers.
All right, so that's correct. Abat.
Because
father, plural, meaning father of a high status or father of your father.
A father of fathers. Your father's father or your father's father's father, and so on.
So the other one I would have to pronounce it Ra'ata. Why I would have to do that?
Because we're talking about past tense. Now, I've never seen it in the scriptures, but just to give an example, like, first of all, if you're talking about categories, it has to make sense. Like, what word has categories?
It's like I understand that because basically you understand. Basically, you gotta know when you're reading the scripture, you gotta know what you're reading, pretty much. You can't be spitting out symbols. Language. I got you. You gotta know what you're reading at the moment. So,
that's pretty much the case.
Yes.
You gotta just know what you're reading. You know what I mean? So if you know what you're reading, if you're talking about past tense and you're talking about what you did in the past, or if I'm talking about what you did in the past, then that will be pronounced Ra'atha. You saw. But I don't know if there's categories in scene, like, okay, you saw this, but what about this? Or, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to try to philosophize it, but. And that's what makes it easy, because there's not, it's hard to make categories of seed, like categories in regards to seed. All right. So you automatically know, that's another indicator. Right? You automatically know that that's pronounced tha. All right. But knowing what you're reading does help a lot. I mean, that's why looking down at the English, it'll help you know what you, it'll help you know what you're reading. Like if you saw, like that's why I used the her example. Like if you saw like her, if you saw like her servant or something like that. I'm not sure what the word for servant is, but if you saw her servant, it'll be the word for servant with ha at the end. So it'll be, and you will pronounce it the word ha. Let me see. See what the word for servant is. You could either look up servant in the concordance and then go to into Bible Hub and go to that same book, chapter, verse, or you could just go to.
Hey, it's like,
the servant.
can you still are into the system?
EANT.
Mm-hmm.
So which one? Genesis 16:8.
So what that says?
I had to change the password.
Genesis 16:8.
I had to
Yeah,
install
servant
and reinstall it.
What's Genesis 16 do they say?
Let me bring it up in
Genesis 16. You can read it in English, and then I'm going to the.
yeah, you got Hagar, servant.
Okay.
So it's
I had to change the password.
so it's Shagar. Where is Shagar?
That was the old password.
Shapacha.
Shabbat, yeah, Shabbat, Shabbat.
I had to change it after this.
So it looks like
Shabbat.
let me see if I can find it in the concordance real quick.
Yeah, it's maid or maid
All
servant.
right, no sweat.
That's the definition.
All right.
Let's see,
Maid servant. Yeah. Shabbat.
I'm looking up shapach in the Hebrew because most root words have 2 to 3 characters.
Oh, gotcha.
So I'm assuming that the ha at the end is a servile tense.
Oh, yeah, fine.
I'm just assuming. This is just the process of trying to learn. So with that assumption, I'm just looking up shapach.
Yeah, Shabbat.
And then seeing if that'll give me the
Yeah, probably.
shapach. I think I passed it up. So lock you, bear with me. 1 second. Shapach. All right. It looks like that is the root word, just talking about a maid servant. All right. It says Which is a maid servant, just a female servant.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, so shapaka. All right, so if you saw a ha at the end of that word, shapaka ha, her servant. All right. Oh, what's the word for serve? Probably the better place to start. Serve. Look that up in the concordance. So what I do is I'll just go into the Bible and I'll look up a word that I want to know in the Hebrew.
So serving would be a slave. So I don't know, we got your bod, unless, you know, depending how you use it.
Ibad. Okay, ibad means to serve.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking for. Yeah, ibad.
Okay, ibad. Let me see.
Yeah, ibad. Slave, serve.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's here in what I just looked up. Yeah, ibad means to serve.
Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to think of a good example, right? Because sometimes the best example that I could come up with is the Shalomah versus Shalomah. That's the best example that I can come up off the top of my head. It's just the difference between her peace and a servant of peace. Like your purpose, like your duty is peace. You know what I mean? To bring peace. But that's the difference. The difference in what you're trying to say is how you pronounce it. So if I wanted to say your service, what you do for the school is to bring peace, to make things, put things in order, to make things peaceful, I would say shalomah. But if I was saying her peace, like I'm doing this for her peace, like she's tripping, so to bring peace for her, I would say shalom ha. But that would be the difference, just what you're trying to say. You will write it the same.
So like, so you pretty much you said shalom ha.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your doings.
Say that again.
So that's pretty much you doings. Like you say, because you try to do peace for her. You explain it just a lot of good. You say shalom ha. Say it again. Can you say somebody as you giving peace to her?
It's okay. So her peace.
All right.
Her peace is the important. Her peace. So like I don't want to give a worldly example, but like when a sister say like, oh, he's my peace,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if you say I'm her peace, right? It'll be shalom ha, her peace. Like this peace is hers. Right? But if you're saying your duty, your service is to bring peace,
I got you, man.
it'll be shalomah.
I got you.
It's like this is my duty. This is how I serve the Lord by bringing peace. So it'll be shalomah. But to say, that's the difference. Doing or what you're doing or the service versus the possession. Like who does the peace belong to versus what the service is. Your service is peace. So if the service is revolving around peace, then you'll use the servile tense. If the ownership is, or if you're talking about who owns the peace, then it'll be her peace. It's her peace. But that's the whole that's the importance of this whole lesson. That's why I preluded it. Like it took me a couple months. Like I kind of was like throwing it out there. throwing it out there that we would have to go into it because we see it a lot in the scriptures, but a lot of times we mispronounce it. We just read it and we just use the foundation of what we learned, and we don't even consider this part of it or the perspective. You know what I mean? Because we've been taught the foundation, which is fine. When you're reading the Lashawan Qadash, you should be practicing the foundation of what you learned. But this is just adding a layer to it. All right.
It's like, but man,
Go ahead.
like, I think mostly because like we don't speak it every day with each other. Like, you know what I'm saying? We completely, once we leave here, every time we see each other, we speaking it every time with each other. I think it'll come to us like second nature, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just like, because when you become age of going to grade school, and you have to, man, it's like years you pick up English. You know what I'm saying? Even understanding, we become about 10, 11 years old, you start understanding phrases, prepositional phrases, and past tense, and present tense, and future tense, and all the other stuff. So, but you have to speak it. And we don't speak it every day with each other. It's kind of still look foreign to us.
No, absolutely, man. What you said was so heavy, and it's gonna be so important for us to understand the Hebrew, because like okay, take for example like in the English, like put this word up here. What does this word say right here?
Read.
What is it also though?
Read.
Right. How do you know the difference?
Just you know the definition of it. Understanding going through grade school, you already know. Read is reading something. Read or.
All right. Let me do this for you, and this gonna help you understand. What's this sentence say, or this phrase? What I just write?
I read.
Okay. What is this?
You read.
You see how you switch the pronunciation based on what?
Based on you change the preposition. I mean, like you said, Hebrew, you change the preposition.
It's
but you change the pronoun.
Based on the context.
Content pronoun.
Based on the context. What are we reading? What are you looking at? And you automatically do it.
Always switch to it.
It's the same thing with the Hebrew. If you know what you're reading and you know what I'm trying to say, then you'll just automatically switch over. But that's the whole, and that's why it took me so long to do this lesson.
That's a good example right there.
Most of the Christ, and it's you don't even think about it in English, but like you said, because we don't speak Hebrew every day, we don't. It's harder for us to make the adjustment.
That was second nature, like I said.
That's literally all it is. You're switching the pronunciation based on the context or what the person is trying to say. So going back to this example, like we use the word see, ra'ah, right? The context of what we're trying to talk about isn't talking about categories. It's not talking about servile tense of see. It's not putting see in the servile tense. I mean, I don't even know how you would do that. It's talking about you. You saw. You in past tense. You saw. So instead of saying ra'ath, it's ra'atha because of context. Instead of saying ra'athya, it's ra'athya because of context. That's all it is. All right. Let me see. And then the next one to say he, right? So he saw. It's just hawa'ah, because hawa'ah is how you say he, and then ra'ah. So hawa'ah, ra'ah. He saw. Hawa'a Ra'a. All right. And this is kind of the example of, well, let me just put it up here. So to say she saw, it'll be Haya'a. Haya'a Ra'a Ha. Ra'a Ha. So how I was talking about before, when you add tenses
Mhm.
to a root word, anything that might cause confusion drops off. Like how we say how these fake Israelites say shalom. We say shalom. The reason why is because the Y in the middle can create confusion. Because we know the Y in the middle means what?
Why?
Yeah, the Y in the middle.
Does it remember me?
Go ahead. What you got?
And
No, in the
In
middle.
the middle.
oh, the middle. Oh, that means describing something, right?
Doing. Is it doing?
Doing.
Yeah,
That's
doing.
what it is. Doing.
That's where I'm from.
It's a doing tense. So instead of saying peace, you're saying, you would think, okay, piecing. When somebody says shalom, you hear piecing because you know the Y in the middle means doing. So to avoid confusion, again, anything that might create confusion in a phrase, it drops off. So instead of saying shalom, it's shalom. That Y in the middle drops off,
Mhm.
and you just add whatever is added. You know what I mean? This is a perfect example right here because to say she saw, it'll be Haya'a Ra'a Ha. Now, what you just read on that sheet, it had a ha at the end, right? Of Ra'a. So,
Yeah,
right. So you would want to read it. If you saw that in the scriptures, if the context is she saw, you will see Ra'a. You will see exactly what you see in that paper. Let me write it up here.
She saw it.
Ra.
Aha.
So you will see this, and it's exactly what you just showed me on that paper.
Ra'aha.
Con. Ra'aha. But if you see it in the scriptures, this would mean she saw. But if you saw see just in the general tense, it would look like this. Ra'a.
So like the reason why I giggle a little bit because during the Sabbath service, when I was up there reading, there's a lot of times you was correcting me because I was saying like I would say hide when I had to say hide and say you say ra'ah.
Uh-huh.
I could have said ra'ah, but I was saying ra'aha.
Con.
I got it based on the content of what the scripture was talking about. I would say it wrong.
Con. That's exactly what we're talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Just the context, and that's a lot of times why I correct brothers. Like when they say certain things, like you just said, when they say certain things, it might seem right because of this 4-step process, and you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong for going about it that way, but it's not correct based on the context. So that's all this class is about, just about how to identify the content. So this is just giving you a different context, and then as we go into the scriptures, or as we read the Blue Letter Bible, or it's like in Bible Hub, then you'll see the context. You'll see the context and why it is what it is. And then we'll be able to break it down further from there. What time is it? Let's see if we'll be able to go into it tonight. It's a lot. It's a lot. But I do encourage brothers to come to Sabbath service so that you can see it and read it. I'm gonna try to get back into the Lashawan Qadash. I'm just doing a review. You know what I mean? Because I think when I put it up here, wasn't a lot of brothers or sisters in the class, so I just wanted to touch on it before I get back in the Bible Hub. But this is I promise you, if you can understand this, if you can add this to your belt, just like, because at first, when we came into the class, we didn't understand the alphabet. We were still fumbling through what's ba, ga, da. You know what I mean? And then we understood that. And then we went over, okay, the prepositions. And then we started to understand that. And then we didn't understand the possessives until we went into it. And then we started to understand that, and so on and so forth, with the tenses. But if you could just add this to your belt, then it's gonna help you as you're reading it, and it's gonna give you another perspective. It's gonna add it to your belt. You know what I mean? So to say she saw, it'll be ra'ah ha, right? To say we saw, right? So we is anaknua. Were you here for this lesson?
Live.
Okay, no sweat. Okay. But okay, so I'm gonna go through it, and I'm gonna go through just the words in a second. But to say we is anaknua. To say we saw, you would just add noah to the end of the root word. So the root word we're dealing with is ra'ah. So to say we saw would be anaknua ra'anua. Right? To say y'all saw, it'll be a thumb ra'athum. Ra'athum. And then to say they saw, would be hum ra'ah hum. Ra'ah hum.
Right up.
Nah, I lost my damn marker. I brought all my markers that I took home because I be putting them in my pocket, and I be losing them in my pocket, and then I end up taking them home. I brought them all back, so you know what I mean. They all there. Lucky. But and another indicator is okay. So we're gonna go over the root word. So anya means I, right? Anya. You is a tha. He hawa'a, right? She haya'a. We anak noah. Anak noah. Y'all a thumb. They home. Go ahead.
Just by you going, pronouncing the words, you know what I'm saying? That's you can't neglect that. These sound just like Native American. You can't neglect that. That sounds just when you go on, how you just saying it, I'm like, man, it sounds just like Gad. You know what I'm saying? That's how you know they're Israelite, because that was the same thing.
Give him a hand. Go ahead.
It's like heavy. That's heavy because you just got to remember watching these movies, like Western movies. When I was a kid, and you just pronounce that word no wah, and some of the stuff they was saying or speaking when they was announcing it, speaking in their tongue.
Absolutely.
It just dawned on me.
No, it's heavy what y'all both saying because Absolutely, because they did speak. They were speaking Hebrew.
God.
Like that's why, like, okay, when you look at the Spanish Inquisition, right? When they came over and stole the land, they sent
Hebrew interpreter.
Khan, Luis de Torres. He was a Hebrew scholar.
God.
Now, if you don't know, if you're expecting to go to a place and you're expecting nobody to be there, why would you send a Hebrew scholar?
Exactly.
Unless you know that these people that you plan on pillaging speak Hebrew. They greeted them at the border with the credo. Yahweh Allahadna Shema Yasha'Allah Yahweh Allahadna Yahweh Akkad. They greeted them with that credo. They had their fringes on. They had the shield of David, the Magun Dawadah, all over their garments. I mean, they had their hair braided. You know what I mean? They had their beards. Like we was talking about this, I believe this Monday or last Monday. They separated from their women when they went to war, meaning they weren't sleeping with their women when they went to war. They separated from their women when they were unclean, when they were on their flower. They were practicing this culture. They kept the like I believe the Native Americans, they have what's called a green corn festival.
Mm-hmm.
That's the, if I'm not mistaken, that's the Passover or the feast of first fruits. That's one of our feast days. But to y'all point, this language sounds so familiar or so similar to what the Native American language is depicted as because they were speaking this language. Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, is the marksmanship the same, almost the same?
The what?
The marksmanship?
What you mean?
The
The handwriting. Yeah. I haven't seen. I ain't gonna lie. I haven't seen the native. I haven't seen any like Native American like handwriting per se. I just haven't seen it, so I can't speak on it. But to your point, you're right. It was because they were writing the Hebrew.
Right.
They were writing in Hebrew. So you exactly right. And it was either they were writing Hebrew or they were writing they were writing English because that's the language that they was given. But like even when even when like researchers try to dig into the history of the Native Americans, like I believe the what's it called, the tribe? Ephraim, Salakia. The Ephraimites. I believe they, if I'm not mistaken, the Tainos, they or there's a tribe that comes from like the Arawaks.
Oh.
And they went into the language and they heard them speaking the language and they called it Arawakan ignorantly. But what they were speaking was Hebrew.
Right.
But what y'all said was extremely heavy. Like this language belongs to us, and this is what we were speaking before they came and stole, or before they came and displaced our people. You know what I mean? It's like it was one other thing I wanted to say as well. Man, I just lost it. It's a lot here. Man, I just lost it, but it was going right to y'all point. But what y'all said was absolutely 100% correct. I mean, oh yeah, I know what it was. Like the root. Let me see. Not the Reubenites, the Ephraimites. Like we were just talking about, the Ephraimites down in when the oppressors pull up on Florida, you know what I mean, where the Ephraimites were. Or the so-called, or no, who was it down there in Florida? I can't remember. But they was like, our brothers is over there. Like we're this is our tribe. They called themselves by their tribe. So I believe it was Ephraim. But it was like whatever tribe it was like, okay, this is my tribe. This is the name of my tribe. They called themselves by their tribe, and it was like my brother Reuben is over on those islands, which is now the I believe who is Reuben Raul? That's the Simeon or the not the who is it?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the over by
The Dominican, right?
the Carolinas, that island they got over the Egyptians.
Oh,
And Reuben and all that.
but they was like, my brothers is over there. They called them by their tribe. It's like, this is my tribe, and my brothers is right over there. You know what I mean? But point being is we knew our language and we knew our culture. You know what I mean? So that's why when you look at like ancient Native Americans, or like when you see your oppressor depicting their language in like movies or like in books or history or things like that, it sounds like Abagada. You know what I mean? It's because this was what we were speaking before they came and displaced us. You know what I mean? But we go and this is also why I left it up here as well. You know what I mean? It might take us a little bit to kind of add this to our repertoire, or to our belt. You know what I mean? To our toolbox, because we familiar with the 4 steps, right? We've been drilling the 4 steps: the preposition, the possessives. I don't know how many times I had to rewrite it on this board. You know what I mean? The preposition, the possessives, the tenses. We didn't have to review it over and over and over again. This is going to be one of those things that we just going to have to get more familiar with. So we're going to have to get familiar with it, see it on the board, be able to reference it, and then read it in the scriptures on Saturday. Read it and recognize it, like, okay, this is what we was talking about. And then come back to class and see it on the board again. Practice using it. Like we used, I believe the first time we went over it, we used the different root word. We used lamad, which means learn or learn. And then the second time we used shamar, and we went over the same concepts. And then now we're using si, ra'ah, and we're going over the same concepts. I mean, it's going to be one of those things that we just going to have to go over and over, right? And then after we get done with that, then we'll go into future tense. I believe that's the next one that I got prepared. But before we close up, before we salute out, any questions on or off topic, or any comments or anything like that? All right, so with that, say Imadium, which means to stand. We'll give a courtesy salute to the brothers. Individual Madu Shabbat, Imadium, Barak, Yajim Matah, Sar. We're going to turn to face the sisters. Give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Individual Madu Shabbat, Imadium, Barak, Yajim Matah. Last is this.
He called me a god.